Okay, so thank you for joining, thank you for watching. Today we're going to run through the simplicity of using Cisco WebEx for your meetings. If you're in the meeting today, please remain on mute. You are welcome to keep your video turned off as well. There's no need for you to say or be seen, and we'll have time for questions at the end. So if you've never been in a WebEx meeting before, or you're new to video conferencing, I just want to address some guidelines, and that's for the people in the meeting today, and it's also for anyone that just wants to discuss this at the beginning of their own video meetings, because we might have people in our meetings that are uncomfortable with using video or technology, and they don't really understand what's happening. So what you should recommend to your attendees is that they use their full name when they're joining as a guest, and this will help you identify who they are. Everyone should stay on mute in the meeting unless it's necessary that they speak, just because there might be some background interference. Even the whirring of a laptop, even if it's unintentional, can interfere with the meeting. Please use the chat and hand raising inside the meeting if you have any questions. This will help to get your host's attention without interrupting the flow of the meeting. And you should also ask that your attendees don't share the link or the password with anyone else because it's not their responsibility. It's only the responsibility of the host and the hosting organization to share the link and password. So everyone is responsible for online safety, so it's really important that we don't have people forwarding that on to other people. If someone asks for the link, even if it's a friend or a family member, we should tell them to please ask the host or the hosting organization for that link. And the last thing to say is if you're on webcam or if someone in your meeting is on webcam, just let them know and that they should act appropriately. So they should stay fully dressed, they should stay seated, not carry the laptop or the camera around different rooms in the house where perhaps we wouldn't want to see their video. So use them today, and also going forward you can use these at the beginning of your meetings. If you're new to WebEx, then welcome. WebEx is a video conferencing tool by Cisco. We don't tend to play in the consumer space, so if you've been on a virtual happy hour or yoga or family quiz in the last couple of months, it probably didn't take place on WebEx. WebEx is mostly an enterprise tool. It's very secure. However, if you are looking for something as a consumer, we do have free accounts, so people are welcome to download them at webex.com, but mostly we play in the enterprise space. It is simple though, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So some people will know WebEx to be the experience on the right-hand side of my screen. It is a video-first experience, and we have a few tools inside the meeting to enable collaboration. Some people will know WebEx to be the picture on the left, which is WebEx Teams, and this is a corporate messaging application. We can create teams and spaces and one-on-one chats where we can enable collaboration, edit documents, send files, and do persistent messaging. Now, just for your awareness, WebEx also extends beyond software to hardware. We have dedicated endpoints like desk phones that can have video running on them. We have interactive whiteboards that are intelligent. They can count the number of people in the room and send you a notification to say there are too many people in the room and you're not abiding by social distancing guidelines. You can have an application on any smartphone or tablet. We have headsets, and we also have desktop video devices which help people when they're working from home. So this is just for you to know that all this exists behind the scenes, but what we are going to look at today and what you'll be using is WebEx Meetings in its simplest form. So the first thing that will happen is once you've requested your account, or once you have registered for your account, you're going to get an email to your professional email address. Click Activate and you'll be taken into the browser where you should set your password. You shouldn't go wrong here, pretty simple. But when you're inside the browser, often you will be prompted to download the WebEx app to your desktop. This is up to you. Your service desk is beginning to support the app now, so if you have admin rights or you work with the service desk, you can download it, but this is just your choice. Everything we're going to show you today is possible in the browser without downloading anything. So if you set your password and you're signed in, then great. If not, head to webex.com and click sign in to get access to your portal. This here is your main page. This is your home page. Now, to get started with your meetings, if you look to the left where we have our menu, I'd like you to click Meetings. And this brings us to our Meetings homepage. You can see I have a calendar here of everything I'm hosting or I've been invited to. But in order to get this populated, you first need to schedule something, so you should use the Schedule button in the top right-hand corner. Once you're inside the scheduling tool, everything is labelled, so you shouldn't have any problems. Fill out the basics like the name of the meeting, generate a secure password, change the time and the date, the time zone if necessary. You can set the meeting to be a one-off or a recurring meeting. And you'll see here there's a field labelled Attendees. You are welcome here to put your attendees' email addresses in to invite them, or you can leave it blank. If you leave it blank, I'll show you another way to invite your attendees in a moment, and that would be via email. So you'll have your recent contacts or your address book available in your email tool. You don't have to worry about typing out everyone's email address in this field here. So leave that blank, that's absolutely fine. But definitely in the first few times, take a look at the advanced options. If you go into the advanced options, I'll first draw your attention to the top here, where it says audio connection type. And you'll see I have a box ticked called Display Global Call-in Number to Attendees. If this box is ticked, that will mean that a local number will be populated in your invitation and sent out to your attendees. So if anyone has or doesn't have access to the internet, they might not have a computer, they will get a phone number that they can use to call in and hear the audio of your meeting. So they will miss out on some of the interactive features if they're only calling in, but still they'll be able to participate via audio. So this is good if you've got people that don't have any connection to the internet. We're still making the meeting accessible to them. And the next thing to mention is at the bottom of the page, you can see it says exclude password. And you should tick that or not tick that depending on the needs of your meeting. So when you send out an invitation, it will include a link to the meeting and also a password. So once these are sent together, anyone with that email will have access to the meeting. If they click the link, they'll have the password. So what you may want to do as an additional security step is exclude the password from the invitation. So if anyone shares the link or forwards the link on by accident, the other person receiving that will not have the password. So they will not be able to access your meetings. It does require a little bit more administration because you will have to provide the password separately, either via another email or a different form of communication, but it is a little bit more secure. So decide on a case-by-case basis whether that's going to work for you. Probably with your colleagues, you're fine to keep the password included in the invitation, but if it's members of the public who might risk sending that email on to other people, then you maybe want to exclude it and then just share the password with your intended group. So just to address a question in the chat, if you think the print is small on the slides, you should be able to zoom in if you're using WebEx at the moment. Just hover over and on the left-hand side, you should have a zoom tool there. Now into more advanced options, you will see we have the option to edit the meeting options and access the attendee privileges. Click on those and you'll be brought into these controls here. Things here you might want to look at are the chat and the attendee list. So at the moment I have the box ticked that says view participant list, and that means that if you're in my meeting, you can see the list of other participants in my meeting. If it's imperative that your meeting be anonymous, you should untick that box, and then the people in your meeting will not be able to see the names of the other people in their meeting unless they're sharing their video or they're speaking. Now in the chat, I often disable participant conversations because I don't want anything to be said without my knowledge. I like the conversation to be public, so I allow only a public chat and a private chat with the host, which is me. So decide again on a case-by-case basis based on what your meeting is. If it's with members of the public, you might want to turn off participant-to-participant conversations. You don't want anything being said that you can't see, especially if you have children in the meeting. Or if you prefer, you can turn off the chat completely under meeting controls. You would just untick that box. Just to reiterate, you can do this every time you schedule a meeting, or you can set a template. If you're meeting with your colleagues, you're probably okay to leave these things on. If you're meeting with members of the public, you might want to turn it off. Okay, so once you've scheduled your meeting, you should click Save. It will populate on your calendar on your meetings homepage, and you'll see it here. You'll notice that some of my meetings say Start and some of my meetings say Join. If it says Start, it's because you are the host of the meeting. Only you have the power to initiate the beginning of the meeting. If it says Join, you've been invited. This is not your meeting, you are just an attendee. So you should join, but you will not be the host. Either way in WebEx, and you'll notice this as we go through, using the big green button is the quickest way to access your meetings. Okay, so after you've clicked Save, you're going to receive 2 emails to your registered email address. The first one will be your hosting information. So this is only for you and you shouldn't share it. And the second one will be the email you can see on the screen now, which is called Forward to Others. This is an email which you should use as your invitation. What I say you should do is click Forward on this. Make any edits to the invitation that you want to do. You might want to change the topic. You might want to put in some text. Dear all, please find below. This is the meeting agenda, blah, blah, blah. And then in the To field, you should put in your attended group of attendees. So then you'll be using it in your email tool. So you'll be able to find your recent contacts or access people from your address book. So this is the second way to invite people. The first way was to include email addresses in the attendee field in the scheduling tool, and this is the second way. I'd say this is the preferred way because you have your contacts readily available in your email tool. What you'll see on this email is that there's an attachment at the top, and anyone that receives this can double click that and save it down onto their calendar with all the meeting details included. They don't have to find the email at the start time, it will just be on whatever calendar they're using. You'll see the big green button there says Join Meeting, and this is the quickest way they'll get access to your meeting by following this. Takes them into a link in the browser. And then just below that, you'll see it says Join by Phone. And here you can see those numbers that I've chosen to include to make my meetings accessible to anyone that doesn't have access to the internet. You'll notice I have a UK number and an Ireland number. So no matter where you are, you have a local number to dial to get access into the meeting. So as long as you are on a phone plan that has included or committed minutes, for example, 200 texts, 200 minutes, then calling this number is not going to cost anyone anything extra because it's just going to come out of those minutes. Once you've started your meeting, or you've clicked Join or Start, and you'll have noticed this if you're in the WebEx today, you get to preview what your video looks like. Take a minute here to check out your background. If you're using a Mac, you'll be able to blur your background. If you're using an iPhone, you'll be able to change your background. You can even turn your video off here. You can mute yourself, change your webcam connection, plug in your headphones, have a fiddle around, tidy up your background, and check you're presentable. You'll see below it says Use Computer for Audio. This is the default option, and you should proceed with this initially. If you do find you're having some connectivity issues, perhaps you don't have very much bandwidth, you may want to change your connection type here. Just by clicking where it says Use Computer for Audio, you can change your audio connection type to use your mobile phone to access the audio, but retain the video on your computer. Because the numbers are local, this again is not going to cost you anything, it's just going to come out of your minutes in whatever plan you're using. It will save some bandwidth on your computer, on your internet. It will just keep the video going over your internet and take the audio onto your telephone network, so it will relieve a little bit of the bandwidth. Once you're happy with everything, click Start Meeting and you'll get access into the meeting room. So once inside the meeting, you'll see we have a panel of controls. Those in the meeting today will be able to see those controls at the bottom. We can turn on and off our audio and video. We can screen share or content share by clicking on the button with the arrow. If you're the host of the meeting, you can record the meeting. You can toggle on and off the participant list and the chat if you have them enabled. Under more options, you can launch a poll and you can lock the meeting. So just a word on lock the meeting here. If you've scheduled it how I've just described with the scheduling tool, if you lock the meeting here, it will be a hard lock. So anyone, even if they have the link and the password, will not be able to get into your meeting once you've locked it. So think carefully about whether you lock your meeting here. Maybe do it after 5 minutes when you've given people ample time to join, or when you're happy with the participants that are already in the meeting and you know no one else needs to join. Polling, I'll describe that in a little bit more detail a bit further on. And if you're already in the meeting and you realise you have some audio or bandwidth issues, you can also choose there to change your audio connection type. So depending on who we've invited, we may have members of the public that are joining and they don't have a computer, or they want to use their smartphone or tablet to join the meeting, and that's absolutely fine. Just to let you know, to join WebEx, you don't need to have an account with WebEx. You can join as a guest in the meetings. So in this example, one of my attendees is using an iPad. They've downloaded the free app from the App Store, and they're going to join the meeting without a WebEx account. All they'll need to do is click that link in the email or use the meeting number and password provided. They should put in their full name when they're joining as a guest so you can identify them, and they'll need to provide an email address. Just to reassure you, that email address is not going to be used by WebEx to send an automatic email or anything. They won't be asked to create an account. They really are joining as guests. The same if someone has a computer, they can just click the link in the email, or they can head to webex.com and type in the meeting number and password there. Now, once inside the meeting, one of the main tools that we use is the content sharing button. So that is at the bottom, it's the little circle with a box and an arrow coming out of it. If you click share content, you'll receive a few different options. You can either share your whole screen, or you can restrict that to a single application window. We can also share a file or a whiteboard. Take a minute to decide what you want to share. If you're going to share your whole screen, just be aware that anything you then see on your desktop, your audience is also going to be able to see. So if you have some confidential information or a personal photograph or your email notifications coming through, and they come through while you're sharing your screen, everyone else is going to be able to see that. So what you may want to do is just restrict what people can see to a single application window. So perhaps your PowerPoint or your Excel file, whatever you happen to be sharing. If you restrict the view just to that, then even if another application comes up or you click outside of that, no one else is going to be able to see that because they have been completely restricted to just that application window that you chose to share. Now, if you're using the browser, so that example I just showed you was the desktop app, if you're using the browser, it will look slightly different. The screen share will appear at the top and you should just select there. So the functionality is largely the same on the desktop app and in the browser, but the appearance sometimes is slightly different. Anything we screen share can be annotated. Annotation on WebEx is only as good as your own skills with the mouse and trackpad, but if you're using it to brainstorm or underline or highlight, it will work really well. You can also add text and basic shapes. And our participants can also join in with the annotation if we grant them permission. So just to reassure you, as the host, it's up to you whether you want to have annotation or you allow other people to annotate. This is your choice. Now, in some instances, it may be necessary that our participants share their screen, and that's absolutely fine. As long as we have this enabled and turned on inside our meeting, our participants will be able to share. So in this example, the iPad, which has joined as a guest in the meeting, is still able to share some content from their device. And as you can see, we can also annotate that. Again, with this kind of thing, decide on a case-by-case basis whether you want to enable this or not. If it's members of the public, you might want to turn it off and only on when you need it. But if you're with your colleagues, you're probably okay to leave it on. Other things we have inside WebEx are the chat and hand-raising functions. If you're in the meeting today, you'll have noticed the chat window, people have started to ask questions. And you also have hand-raising. If you're looking for hand-raising and you haven't found it yet, I'll just draw your attention to the picture on the left. You can see it says Millie Bradley Cisco host, and then underneath Amelia May is my guest. And then you can see a little hand symbol next to that name. If you also find your name on your participant list in today's meeting, you will find the hand symbol in the same place. If you click that, your hand will raise, and I'll get a notification showing me that you want to ask a question or you want my attention. This is a great tool to use inside your meetings if you don't want people to come off mute, or if you just want people to do a show of hands on how they're feeling if they have any questions. On an iPad, it looks slightly different, and you can see that there in the pictures on the right-hand side. Polling is also a feature that we have inside WebEx. We can turn this on and off inside our meetings as we need. Only the host has the power to initiate the polling. We can save some questions, write them in advance, save them, and open them inside the meeting, or we can make them up on the spot. It's entirely up to you. What we can also do is either have the anonymous results, or we have detailed results of how individuals voted. So I'll just show you in the next page here. If you look on the page on the left, the polling is just below the participant list there, and you can see we get a bar chart of how the attendees answered. It's anonymous. On the right-hand side, we can get a detailed report of how attendees answered the question. So this is really good if you are testing, if you are doing a formal vote, or you need some kind of way, or it's imperative that you save the answers of how people answered your questions. So there are main features, and then obviously when it comes to the end of your meeting, you're going to use the big red button to end the meeting. If you're a participant in the meeting and you press the red button, you will leave the meeting and it will not affect anyone else. If you're the host and you press the red button, that will end everyone's experience. Everyone will be disconnected and they won't be able to continue to collaborate and talk after you've left. As you can see on the right-hand side, the iPad, which has joined as a guest in this presentation, has been disconnected. They've been taken back to the login screen and they're not requested to create an account or anything like that. They purely did join as a guest. Great. So if you're watching today or you're in today's meeting, then steps that you can take now to get comfortable using WebEx are, first of all, to make sure your account is activated. Sign in at webex.com. Check out your main page. Look for meetings where you can make some scheduling, plan some meetings with your colleagues to practice. And then also preferences is where you can change your profile picture, update your time zone, and that kind of thing. Get comfortable with it. Definitely practice though. If you practice a lot, you'll be more comfortable when you host your real meetings. Tips for practicing are: use the people you know, use your family and colleagues, have people join using different devices, and then play with the privileges and options in the scheduling and while you're in your meeting so you're comfortable with the differences. And the last thing to mention is, once you're happy with that, once you're comfortable with some of the settings, save a template, and then every time you come to schedule, you can just choose your template based on a colleague audience or a public audience. It'll save you a lot of time. You can feel free to pause the recording here if you want to look at this cheat sheet, and also do's and don'ts inside your meeting. So pause the recording here if you want to look at do's and don'ts. And then the last thing we'll mention as well is if you need any help, your first point of call should be help.webex.com. Help.webex.com is a great resource that we are constantly developing and updating with great guides, helpful tips, and the answers to common questions. So if you go here and you type in your question, how do I share my screen? How do I lock my meeting? Then the answers are going to be there in detail so you can just self-help. There are recordings and you can register for online classes here as well. If you need any more help, then you can also open a case at help.webex.com or ask the community, which is kind of like a forum. So that's someone else might have had the same issue you've had, and you'll find an answer there. Okay, let's just address what's in the chat today. So the maximum number of participants inside a meeting is 1,000, and that's including the host. So you might have one host and 999 attendees. I'm sure you won't get to that many in your meetings, but that's the capacity. One question here, how many participants in the meeting can be viewed at any one time? So because I'm sharing my PowerPoint today, we can't see a grid view of participants, but if I wasn't sharing, video would be the first experience we see. And you can toggle this on and off. You can either see one person or you can see a grid of up to 25 people. And you can change that based on what you want to see. So someone said, a basic question, what is your username? So Elaine, do you explain that question?
I've answered them. It's what's their username. They didn't know whether it should be their full name or their email address to log into WebEx. So it's your email address is your account name. Another person has asked whether it's best to use Google Chrome or Internet Explorer. They had issues connecting through Google Chrome today, but Internet Explorer worked, and they're wondering what's better.
Great.
In my experience, Google Chrome.
The other way around, don't we?
Yeah.
But if you're looking for some help on which is the best browser to use or whether your browser is the right version, at help.webex.com, if you type in the name of your browser, you'll be able to see any common issues or any limitations, and you just might want to check there just to check that your settings are going to work well with WebEx. But you can use Google Chrome or Internet Explorer with WebEx.
Mona is asking if this is being used widely for remote training. Mona, the answer to that is yes. There are lots of groups using this already for training, including speech and language therapists. It's been used for antenatal classes. It's been used for, corporate training as well. So yes. Also, one other person is asking, Celine is asking about webinar style sessions where people can't speak or use the camera. Do you want to go through that, Millie?
Yeah, so if you're thinking about having a webinar or a WebEx event, then what we're using today is absolutely fine. But if you need more control over video and audio, you want everyone to be muted, or you have a really high number of attendees, like over 100 or 200 attendees, what you may want to do is use WebEx Event Center. If you want to use WebEx Event Center, you should have access to it, but you will schedule it slightly differently to how I've shown you today. Go to your home page. Let me see if I can show you an example. You see there in the bottom left-hand corner, it says WebEx Training, WebEx Events. If you click there, you'll be able to schedule WebEx Event. But it's a little bit more complicated than what I've shown you today, so only use that if you're comfortable. You can find help for that at help.webex.com.
It's just what I was about to say. There's a question about the usual question about breakout rooms, Millie.
Great. So breakout rooms are available in our software called WebEx Training Center. We should be able to have breakout rooms in Meeting Center in the very near future, but we haven't got a date for that yet. So if you're looking for breakout rooms, you should use WebEx Training Center. However, these are audio only, which means no video can be shared inside the breakout rooms. If you're looking for video breakout rooms, then I will leave this here for you to have a look at, or you can pause the recording here if you want to see this. Just so you know, this is not the official way. This is a workaround which we have found to be successful. Only do this if you are comfortable using WebEx and you know that people inside your meeting will be comfortable hosting in their personal rooms as well. But this is what you should do if you think you need video breakout rooms. And one question there, if I schedule a meeting today, can I add a document tomorrow for attendees to read in advance? Inside WebEx Meeting Center, you can't pre-upload a document, but what you may want to do, or what could be a good idea, is when you send them the email invitation, you could attach the document to share there. So if you see this email here, what you could do is forward this on and attach the document that you intend. But using WebEx Meetings, you can't pre-upload a document. Are there any additional benefits to having the app? There are a few additional benefits to having the app on your desktop. One we noticed was with annotations. So you can't do the full annotations if you're in the browser, I believe. There may be a few more, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but if the basic meetings with video and chat are fine in the browser, maybe check on help.webex.com. If there's a specific feature you want in the browser, you just might want to check it's available. So I'll just remind everyone about help.webex.com because all the questions that have been asked today, the answers will be available at help.webex.com. So this should be your first point of call to get help. Before you contact your service desk, try here and see if the answer's here, see if you can self-help.
Yep, I'm going to second that, Millie, because I do get a lot of questions sent to me that really can be answered on help.webex.com, so please go there first. It is really, really comprehensive resource, and not only are there help articles, but there's also training and training sessions that you can there are online classes that you can register for, or there are on-demand training sessions that are pre-recorded that you can use there. There's one question actually about from Orna about if there's additional benefits to having the app downloaded.
Yeah, so having the app on your desktop, there will be a few more features available. One thing we noticed in the browser, the annotations weren't the same, so you can have those if you're using the desktop app. And again, if there's a feature you want and you're not sure it's in the browser, just check on help.webex.com, and if not, download the app if you can. There will be some differences in how the app looks on your desktop, on the smartphone, on the tablet, and in the browser. They will look slightly different. Basic functionality is there in all of them. Some might differ in how the features work.
And I just wanted to add about the app, you can call the service desk to download and install the app and the WebEx productivity tools, which will which is a plugin for Outlook and Lotus Notes that will put the details of your meeting directly into your meeting requests. So we're working on a way to get that on the self-service part of the service desk, but for now you can ring them because you do need admin rights to install it. So they're the only ones that can do it. It may work for you, but to run the install, but the actual app won't work properly unless you've installed it with admin rights. So I'd advise you to do that if you need it.
Great. If there's any more questions, please put them in the chat box now. Otherwise, you're welcome to disconnect. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Millie. And thanks for everybody for joining.